Good morning, everyone. I'm Doreen, and I will be the MC for today's session. The world is full of diamonds and gems, and we are having some of them here today. With this note, I would like to give my heartiest welcome to our resource person, Dr. M.L. Munjal, AICTE Distinguished Chair Professor, an Indian acoustical engineer, honorary professor, and INSA senior scientist at the Facility for Research in Technical Acoustics of the Indian Institute of Science. Our principal, Dr. P. Devasundari, our faculties, and to all our blooming students, welcome all. A man cannot be comfortable without his own approval, says Mark Twain, a famous American writer. Self-confidence, the key to success, or we can say the first step to success. If a person has self-confidence, he has won half the battle. Self-confident people seem at ease with themselves and their work. They invest trust and inspire confidence in others. These are all attractive characteristics one must have. I would like to invite Dr. Edward Kennedy, head of the Mechanical Engineering Department, to deliver the welcome speech.
Very good morning to all. And it is really a great pleasure to have a session like this, and that too with the distinguished professor, Dr. M.L. Munjal. Sir, on behalf of the KCG College of Technology, we welcome you for this session, sir. We are very grateful to you for accepting our invitation and be present for this and to share your experience with our students and also the students from other organizations and institutions. We welcome you, sir. And also I welcome all the participants for this program with a special interest towards the topic. I hope all of you would have joined for this one. The topic itself says, developing a self-confidence is a challenge. It's not going to come very naturally. We all know that. So it has to be built brick by brick. And it's a wonderful session. It is going to be a wonderful session for all of us to listen for this to listen on this topic from the distinguished professor. So stay with us. Thank you all for joining for this one. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those warm words of welcome. Standing by our founder and chairman, Dr. KCG Varghese' vision to make every man a success and no man a failure, KCG College of Technology is committed in the holistic development of every student, nurturing the attributes of service and ethical value system in technical education, thereby producing responsible citizens and progressive leaders. The Department of Research, in association with AICTE, has come up with the challenge yourself for developing self-confidence to nurture students with indispensable thoughts. May I now invite Dr. Deepa Jose, Head Research and Associate Professor of Electronics and Communication Department, to introduce the speaker of the day.
Thank you, Doreen. I'm proud and privileged to introduce the speaker for today, Dr. M.L. Munjal, Professor IIC Bangalore and INSA Honorary Scientist. Sir has completed his PhD and Masters from Indian Institute of Science. Sir has published more than 213 journal papers and 145 conference papers, 3 books and 2 patents. Sir has 7,943 citations to his publications, and H index is 38 and I-10 index is 98. Sir has been the former chairman of the National Committee for Noise Pollution Control, president of Acoustic Society of India, and board of directors of the International Institute of Acoustics and Vibration, vice president of Indian National Science Academy, member board of research of AICTE, and member of advisory board of CSIR and DST, and many more. Sir is a recipient of many honors and awards. Sir is a recipient of Jawaharlal Nehru National Award in Engineering and Technology for the year 2010 for significant contribution to noise pollution control. Sir is also a recipient of the DRDO Academic Excellence Award 2009 at the hands of former Honorable Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh. Sir C.V. Raman Award for the year 2007. Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Awards received at the hands of former Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. And the Science Academy Medal for Young Scientist Award by the Indian National Science Academy received at the hands of Honorable Prime Minister of India, Ms. Indira Gandhi. So we are in fact lucky and privileged to have such a renowned person amongst us. I welcome you once again on behalf of KCG College of Technology and on behalf of the students who will be keenly awaiting for your lecture. And over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Deepa. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I must thank Dr. Kennedy and also your principal. Very, very nice introduction, etc. It's really a pleasure talking to you, and more than anything to your students who are just at the right age, to be influenced positively towards this approach. And I'm going to tell you something which is all from personal experience, and everything tried on myself, and therefore, you will know that whatever I'm saying, it's from my deep heart. And I really will be very happy if some of you can absorb and, use it in your life to really take you a little higher. Yeah, I just want to tell you that I was born to parents with no formal education, and on the wrong side of the border in 1947, and starting my life from a refugee camp, I rose to receive awards from 3 different prime ministers. So I just want to share with you my brief life story with the hope that it will inspire the younger generation to challenge themselves at every stage and convert adversity into advantage, instead of cribbing about inadequacy of resources, facilities, and opportunities. Now, I was 3-year-old in 1947 when, we had to leave everything on the other side of Punjab, which is now Pakistan, and settled down in Hoshiarpur, in Punjab, in a refugee camp. Now, you can imagine what the life would be in a refugee camp. Everybody was crying most of the time, and praying to God to get out of that somehow. Not only that, there were many of us who had been separated. In fact, my father took 3 months to trace my mother and me, so that's how people got separated from each other. So what I'm trying to say is that in that kind of stage, my father could only thank God all the time. And I was very surprised as a 3-year-old child. I asked him, what he was thanking for, when everybody else was crying and praying for something, and he was only thanking God. He said something which has remained with me all my life. He said, son, we are alive. Isn't that sufficient? He said, God gave us life, and rest is in our own hands. No excuses. So this ultimate bottom line has stayed with me all my life. And I thought I must share with you this part, because most of us get they're disturbed by small things in life during the day. But here was my father, who had lost everything we had back there. He was not educated, okay? And despite all that, he was only thanking God that it was enough that we were alive. In fact, I understood this many years later when I grew up, that, in the train that we came from Pakistan, 50% died on the way, because it was 72-hour journey with all windows, doors closed, no water, nothing at all. So people died of, just dehydration. Anyway, that apart, what I want to tell you is that this is what I call the ultimate bottom line. And we should not, ask for or expect anything from God. It's enough that we are alive, and rest is in our hands. Now, I joined Sanatan Dharam Higher Secondary School, which was about 5 kilometers walking distance from the refugee camp. And, we had a tradition of prayer. At in the morning when we got together, there would be a prayer. And after the prayer, once in a while, we would have a guest speaker who would talk to us about something that is of interest to us children. Now, on a particular day, this speaker, I think he was either a psychologist or educationist, and he made a very nice statement. He said, nobody is born intelligent. What he said was that as we do exercise, physical exercise to build up our muscles, same way, we should all the time challenge ourselves. And that's the best exercise for brain. And more you challenge yourself, the more brain development will take place, more creative you will become, more, successful you will be. So this was a very nice thing that happened, because suddenly I got something, it really touched my heart, that to be intelligent is in my hand. Now I started challenging myself intellectually. Playing with integers, I developed magic tables to entertain myself as well as my classmates. Now, having no entertainment at home, I engaged myself with mathematical challenges that made me excel not only in mathematics, but also everything logical. Looking for logical patterns in algebraic calculations became my hobby as well as a personal challenge. This is how I developed during my 8th standard what I later came to know was called the binomial theorem. Now, something very interesting happened. At the end of 7th standard, those exams, we had some, vacation kind. It was called holidays. Okay. And during that time, I used to be very fond of playing cricket. So I was playing cricket in the street, and my elder brother came and simply snatched me away from my friends and told that we cannot afford to be playing cricket or playing at all. We have to rise, and we have nothing at home anything at all, and we must be utilizing every moment. And he particularly said that I must excel in my class. He said, I have been excelling all last 7 years. I have been standing first in the school. What else did he want from me? And he said, no, that's not sufficient. 8th standard, those days 8th standard was also a board examination. So he said, you don't know what you are going in for, and you have to really start studying right now. Anyway, just to, get my brother off my back, won't let me play cricket, I discovered my potential. You know what happened? I took his 8th standard mathematics book and read chapter by chapter and solved all the exercises or problems. And in about 10 days time, I went back to my brother and presented to him complete notebook containing all the answers to all the problems of that book. And then I said, well, like a typical child, I said, can I go and play now? Okay. So this is, I just wanted to share this one, that, that is how he got convinced that, okay, I was all right. But in the whole process, by that evening, I started thinking that really I could do it. I mean, I had discovered myself, I just discovered my potential. It gave tremendous boost to my self-confidence and self-esteem. And in fact, that is how I chose the title of today's talk, that you challenge yourself for, developing self-confidence. Now, continuing further, during the higher secondary, it was the 3 years after higher secondary, 9th, 10th, and 11th. I secured 5th rank in the Punjab University in my higher secondary examination. And this was despite the fact that I was representing my school in cricket. So we used to play in the evening cricket and at the same time studying. And because of the confidence that I developed myself, I didn't have to study, every day, everything in that detail. Because all the time I would challenge myself and be able to do myself rather than studying what is written there. Another thing I want to tell you that this was a big thing because, Punjab University was the only university in the whole of Punjab. And in fact, those days, Punjab was also containing Haryana and Himachal Pradesh. So 3 states, only 1 university. So it was quite a distinction to get the 5th rank. In fact, I was taken around the city, in a procession. That is what happened. Anyway, despite a rank in the university, my future appeared to be bleak. My father could not afford to send me to college, leave aside an engineering college. Now, fortunately, however, the government introduced that very year the Government of India Scholarship for Life scheme for the first 10 rank holders of every university in the country. Okay, so thus my higher education was ensured all the way to PhD at one go. Okay, and that's why I have titled this slide as God helps those who help themselves. Now, I did my pre-engineering from Government College Hoshiarpur, which was earlier Punjab University College, before the university shifted to Chandigarh. Okay, I joined this Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh, in mechanical engineering, and it had a very nice addition. That college was a residential college, very, very old college. In fact, it used to be at Lahore before 1947, and then later on it was shifted to Roorkee and then to Chandigarh when the new city was built. Now, at the end of second year, all the students would go to Calcutta side, that is East India, for 20 days to look at all the industries. Similarly, next year, after third year, people will be sent to all the way to south by coming to Bangalore and Mysore and Chennai, etc. Now, during this educational tour, the winter vacation, we visited Bangalore. Now, what happened was that we had brought a bogie. We were all on a 3-tier bogie, which was broad gauge. In those days, there was no broad gauge connection between Bangalore and Mysore. So we had to leave our bogie at the station and catch buses to go to Mysore. But due to some miscommunication, I missed the bus to Mysore and was stranded at Bangalore for 2 days. Now, that is the best thing that happened to me, for I discovered the Indian Institute of Science, probably the best place for a born researcher like me. So what I want to tell you is that it was during those 2 days that I, stayed at IISC. In fact, you would be surprised and shocked. I did not even know anything about Indian Institute of Science. My general knowledge was so poor that, it was really a discovery for me that here was an institute which had the best of resources in the country. And more than anything, it had very good laboratories, a very good library, and very good tradition of research in that place. So I really told myself that that is the place where I must be working or researching. The next year, fortunately, I was selected at Institute of Science to do my master's degree in the Department of Internal Combustion Engineering without any test or interview. In fact, in those days there were no competitive examinations. That the department would look at our full career, right from matriculation upwards, and see whether the person has excelled himself all the time. And if he has, we were selected. And that is how I was selected. Now, I joined the Department of Internal Combustion Engineering. This was a 2-year program, 4 semesters. In fact, it was a very rigorous program because first 3 semesters we studied 23 subjects and there was no choice at all. Okay, and not only that, even in every course examination, there was no choice in the questions. All questions were compulsory, and 55% was pass marks. And if a person failed in 2 subjects out of 23, he had to leave the institute, no appeal, nothing. He had to leave the institute, and degree was denied to him. So what I'm trying to say is, it was a very rigorous program. And at the end of this, the final semester, I was asked to work on analysis and design of mufflers for the engine exhaust noise control. But this was surprising because in those 23 subjects, not a single one dealt with acoustics or noise. So I knew nothing about it. Acoustics or noise control was not a part of the curriculum those days. So I knew nothing about the subject. Now, being a topper, I could have requested for a change in the topic for my dissertation project. However, I took it up as a personal challenge. Now, this was another very special day for me because my very close friends, they were really asking me that, was I, had gone mad or what? Working on a problem about which I knew nothing. And then I lose my rank in the class. How could I do that kind of thing? But then, as I told you, right from childhood, all the time I was challenging myself, and I again took up the challenge. I went to the library and looked at all the journals that I could find and looked at the references. And I found that a book on fundamentals of acoustics by Kinsler and Frey, that was the one book which was world famous on this. And so I found out a copy of that book in the library and did the same thing that I did in 8th standard about mathematics. I gave myself a crash course in fundamentals of acoustics. Again, doing the same thing. I solved again all the exercises and problems of the book all by myself. And, this really boosted my self-confidence much further. And more than anything, I again discovered that practically nothing had been done in this field of analysis. I'm sorry. Yeah. So what I was trying to say is that literature survey revealed that very little had been done on rational synthesis of exhaust mufflers. And here was an opportunity for me to make a difference. And then sitting in the library from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 14 hours a day except for lunch break or dinner break. For the next 3 months, making use of mathematical induction, electroacoustic analogies, and heuristics of the successive multiplication of transfer matrices, all self-taught. I developed an algebraic algorithm. Now, this was a very interesting algorithm because by virtue of this novel algorithm, I was able to I was able to write out the algebraic expression for velocity ratio across a given linear dynamical filter consisting of any combination of distributed or lumped elements without having to solve a number of simultaneous algebraic equations. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that normal thing is that, let us say if you have a muffler and you look at it as a cascade of elements, typical filter using electroacoustic analogies, and then you develop and write transfer matrices and then multiply them successively one after the other. And from the overall transfer matrix, find out the transformation laws or insertion laws. Now, all this was not necessary. This algorithm allowed me to write the final insertion laws straight away from the given system. No question of writing equations, no solving simultaneously, no transfer matrix multiplication, nothing at all. Okay, that's why I said it was like binomial theorem. Okay. Now, this was a great thing because when I presented it in the department as a seminar, everybody was simply shocked, including my own guide, whom I had never met actually after the problem was given. I just took it on myself. Okay. So after I finished my seminar, for 2 or 3 minutes, there was silence in the auditorium. And then finally, only one question was asked. How did it occur to you? Because nobody could imagine that given, this was a really breakthrough for all linear dynamical filters, whether it's electrical wave filters or vibration isolators or acoustic mufflers. Here was an entire new thing where I could write the answer straight away. And because I could write the answer straight away, it was very useful for design because I knew that this particular element has this kind of effect at the end. Or if this element, instead of preceding that, if it had followed that other element, it would have been better. So in this way, I'm just saying here, this algebraic algorithm proved to be not only a breakthrough for analysis of one-dimensional dynamical filters, but also for a rational synthesis of vibration isolators as well as exhaust mufflers. I can just tell you that the papers that I published those days, like on vibration isolators, till today remain the only paper of that kind, where for any multi-degree freedom vibration isolators, I gave expressions and design criteria which even now they are used. And same thing about exhaust mufflers, that without having to analyze this hard way. Let me also tell you that it was also kind of necessity. We did not have computers those days. I'm talking of 1968. Okay, our first computer came into the industry of science only in 1970. We had no computers, no question of laptops, no calculators, nothing at all. So there was a great necessity and therefore great incentive for theoretical work. And in theoretical work, this thing was completely a new breakthrough. Okay, what I want to tell you here is, had I not challenged myself, I would have ended up by making at best a small incremental contribution to the field. Instead, I developed a niche for myself. So what happened now? Everybody was so impressed, all teachers, at that seminar, that all of them, after the seminar, they persuaded the head of the department to write to the director. Those days, Satish Dhawan was director. So they write to him and then say that this, young man now needs to be absorbed as lecturer. But that was almost impossible because I was not having PhD. PhD was a must for lectureship even those days at IAS. But consequent to a unanimous recommendation of the faculty of the department to the then director Satish Dhawan, I was offered a lecturership in the department without any interview. Okay, now this was really a great exception that industrial science made for me. In fact, a supernumerary post was created for me, waiving off the requirement of PhD or the lecturer's post. Now, after finishing my master's degree, I was strongly advised by my well-wishers and colleagues to apply for admission to MIT or Caltech for my PhD. For IISc, I'm sorry. Yeah, IISc had no reputation in this field. But again, the urge to challenge myself proved too strong for me. I said no. I must do it here and prove that one doesn't necessarily have to go abroad to do PhD. So my spontaneous rejoinder was that MIT and Caltech had acquired their reputation because of the achievements of their faculty and alumni. And I would also make the best of meager resources IISc had to offer and publish papers in the best of journals. I would thus make my institute as well as research supervisors proud of me. Now, all I needed was patronage and encouragement, and I got a lot of it from Professor M.B. Narasimhan, who continued to be my friend, philosopher, and guide later. In fact, he unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Now, when I became lecturer, I approached the head of the department and asked for 10,000 rupees to set up a laboratory so that I could demonstrate some experiments to the students. But the head of the department simply refused. He said, young man, 10,000 rupees is a lot of amount. You have to first prove yourself before you ask for money. Okay. So anyway, on being denied this grant of rupees 10,000 to set up experimental facilities, I challenged myself again to carry on with theoretical research. I learned and made use of the theory of combinatorics to establish sufficiency of the constraints for writing out velocity ratio in terms of valid combinations of the characteristic impedances of the elements constituting a dynamical filter, making use of an ingenious two-row array of the element subscripts. And based on the analytical validation of my algorithm, I got my PhD degree and published several papers in reputed journals. And soon thereafter, in fact, 73, I became assistant professor. And soon thereafter, I was promoted as an assistant professor and was awarded the Science Academy Medal for Young Scientists for the year 1975. It was told earlier, I received it at the hands of the then Honorable Prime Minister, Ms. Indira Gandhi, in January 1976 at the Science Congress in Voltaire. Now, this was really a big thing for me in many ways. And one was that this is the first time I had more than 1,000 rupees in my bank account. Okay. And the second thing was that this is the first time my father got convinced that I was on the right track. He didn't even know up to that time what I was doing and why I was doing. Okay, because as I said, he had no formal education at all. Okay, and then once I got this award and went home and showed that photograph of Miss Indira Gandhi and me, that my receiving award, and then he was convinced. Not that he understood all that award or anything, but he understood that I must be doing something right. Okay, so after that, he never questioned, what I was doing. Now, during the next 7 years, I worked on analysis of commercial mufflers, most of which make use of perforated elements. And this posed a formidable challenge. You know, what happens is that you have 2 or 3 pipes interacting with each other through the holes. And therefore, the waves in one are interacting with the waves in the annulus and so on. So you have a number of partial differential equations to be solved simultaneously. Now, this was very, very difficult. Okay. But then, in association with one of my PhD students, Dr. K. Narayana Rao, who had come to me under quality improvement program from the college, Osmania College, Engineering College, in Osmania University College, Hyderabad. We developed a distributed parameter approach along with eigenanalysis of perforated element mufflers. And a paper based on this work was a best paper in the world in muffler acoustics by Nelson Industries in USA. And we got the Nelson Acoustical Paper Award first prize in 1984. Now, this was another thing very, very important because both my student and I, we were invited all the way to USA with all expenses paid. And then we got $2,000 each, as the award. More than that, the Nelson Industries really found that somebody was doing this work much better in India than in USA. In fact, that was my first visit to USA. And then Larry Erickson, vice president, he tried to persuade me to stay on there. And I said, no, that's not right, because, I still, I said, India Institute of Science needs me and I must get back. But I told him that next sabbatical, whenever I get, I'll try to join them for 1 year, and that's all. But I cannot settle in USA. No, that's not on. There was, me in that, the nationalism was so strong. And more than that, I wanted to prove that, every, what should I say, promising scientist doesn't have to, go over to USA, as it used to happen those days. And based on this breakthrough, I got 2 projects from the Volkswagen Foundation in Germany and published a few papers that have been cited very widely. And because of all this now, a number of things happened. I had my first sabbatical at the Institute for Technical Acoustics at Technical University Berlin during 79-80, where I gave a course on muffler acoustics in English. What happened was, I was invited by the director of that institute, and I knew some German language, but it was not sufficient at all for me to be lecturing in German. Same way, my audience, who were all professors, they knew little English, but not sufficient to understand everything in English. So I worked out via media, and then I used to prepare lecture notes and hand over Xerox copies. Excuse me. Yeah. So I would, hand over Xerox copies of the same 1 week in advance in English. These handwritten notes, incidentally, became the first draft of a monograph. Thus, I once again converted a problem into an opportunity. Now, these notes eventually resulted in the monograph Acoustic Subducts and Mufflers, published by John Wiley, New York in 1987. And mind you, this book, till today, has remained the only book in the world. So I really became a kind of pioneer in my field. And then, in fact, later they approached me in 2013-14 for the second edition. And so this second edition has been published by, again, John Wiley, but this time in UK, which is their headquarters, in February 2014. Now, during my sabbatical stay in West Berlin, in association with Professor Manfred Haeckel, I worked on the mechanisms of railway noise generation. So I moved away from my mufflers field, And because I actually what happened was Professor Hickel told me that the grant from which I was being paid, that is actually dealing with railway noise. So I said, all right, I'll work on railway noise. Again, now I knew nothing about it, but I again took up the challenge. I studied the rail wheel interaction and modeled the flexural vibration of the rail as well as wheel and investigated the effect of the periodic sleepers underneath. An interesting result of the study was that the sleepers should not be placed at equal distances. You know that they are always placed at around 60 centimeter distance. So what I said was exact periodicity was responsible for harmonic excitation of the rail, resulting in excessive noise in certain bands of frequencies and hence the train speeds. Now, after coming back, as I told you, I continued on working on mufflers, and then in 86 beginning, I got my full professorship in 1986. I was 41 years old at that time. But around the same time, I received the Shanti Swarup Bhattacharya Prize in Engineering Sciences for the year 1986 at the hands of Shri Rajiv Gandhi, then Honorable Prime Minister of India, and fellowship of the Indian National Science Academy in 87, fellowship of the Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore in 87, and fellowship of the then newly established Indian National Academy of Engineering in 87. In a way, I became a founder fellow of INAE, although I was away at the University of Calgary in Canada and Nelson Industries in Wisconsin for my second sabbatical. And one thing I must also tell you that he must have been under very special stars, as they say, because you can see here this 1, 2, 3, 4, all the 4 things I received within 2 years, from 86 to 87. Now, during my stay at Nelson Industries, I worked for the first time on active noise control of the air handling units used in thermal power plants and the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Now, this is again a very interesting thing. When this Dr. Larry Erickson invited me and he asked me to work on active noise control, I asked him, I said, no, until today, all my life, I have worked only passive systems. So what do you think I'll be able to do active systems? It was very interesting. He says, we know that you will do it. You know, and in fact, it was very moving to see this man in USA having more faith in me than myself at that time. So I just told myself, I'll take up the challenge and I'll not let him down. So I studied the whole field and then saw that, you know, they did not know how actually active noise control system worked. They were all electrical engineers, you know, basically electrical communication engineers, and they were using this digital signal processing with adaptation, and that is how they were making the system work. But they really did not know how exactly it was working because they didn't know much about acoustics. Anyway, our studies revealed that in a tuned active noise control system, the secondary source or the auxiliary source and the primary source unload each other. What I'm trying to say is they present an acoustical short circuit, that means zero acoustic impedance to each other. In this way, they are made to silence each other by means of an adaptive digital infinite impulse response filter working on the feedback control of or the feed forward approach. Of those days, we use the feedback control. Okay. So now what happened was that because they knew how the system worked, all they had to do is the system had to produce a zero impedance at those junctions. Okay. And in fact, I also came out with optimum transfer function that must be generated by the system. And then they'll find that, you know, they have this kind of thing where there's no noise coming from coming at all from the primary system as well as auxiliary system. And this is a very important thing because up to that time, we used to think that, you know, they had to have positive energy and negative energy. But first thing I told myself that there cannot be anything like negative energy. Okay, all we have to do is we have that transfer function, and if we use the primary signal being multiplied by that before it's given to the this auxiliary system, then what would happen is the real part of the acoustic impedance would be zero at the primary source as well as auxiliary source. So both of them would silence each other. Now, excuse me. Right. In 1988, after I returned from USA, I was approached by Dr. V.K. Atre, who later on became the chief of DRDO, work on, sorry. I was approached by Dr. Atre to work on acoustic propagation across lined hulls. This was an entirely new field, but then I took the challenge and eventually developed guidelines for design of the stealth linings for submarines. You know, this I want to tell you here. See, those of you who are not very familiar with what happens in the marine warfare, underwater, the light cannot travel. The electromagnetic waves also cannot travel. Only thing that can travel is, acoustic waves, because they make use of only the inertia of water and the bulk modulus. So therefore, it was very important that we understood what was going on. So the enemy sends out his signal through their sonar, okay, and then from the after getting the reflection from our submarine, we will come to know where our submarine is, and also whether it's moving, and if it's moving in what direction or at what speed. And then using all the data and basically signal processing, they are able to fire a torpedo at our submarine and destroy it. So our idea was that if you could develop linings which simply absorb that signal that comes from the enemy, and nothing goes back, and when nothing goes back, they don't think our submarine is there at all. So we are able to make our submarine invisible, as it were. Okay, but in this whole process, in fact, there was an element of serendipity. I hope you understand serendipity. Serendipity means basically when you are trying to do something and you are looking for some result, you get entirely different result, which was not foreseen at all. Okay, but that is the way nature tries to tell us that what we are expecting is wrong, and that this whole phenomenon is called serendipity. Okay, so there was, in fact, when I was working on that, there were several times when we got results that were different, entirely different from what we were expecting. Okay, and then as they say, serendipity has never happened to an uninitiated person. Okay, so there is some kind of natural phenomenon, and that governs this. Anyway, let me not go into the serendipity, but all I want to tell you here is about serendipity, that it has been shown in the world, more than 50% of discoveries that have happened by serendipity. When a scientist was doing something and he was expecting something, but something else happened, and instead of throwing it out simply, he tried to find out what had happened, and then he found that his expectation was wrong, and what was really happening is something different. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, it took us many years working on this problem. It was very challenging for me because I had to understand what is underwater acoustics, and then also what is under warfare, and what we could also do, and then develop complete theory, acoustic theory, and develop acoustic linings that could absorb the signal that is coming. And the graphical user interface, as well as the codes for analysis of these resonator linings, were passed on to the design directorate of the Indian Navy. And this and some other associated pieces of research. Got me the coveted DRDO Academic Excellence Award for the year 2009 at the hands of the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh. But please note here that it's not just challenging and taking up a challenge, but also perseverance. To get an idea of perseverance, look here. I started in 1988 and finished somewhere in 2007 or 8. That means almost 20 years. During these 20 years, in fact, we published several papers on this, and 2 students got their PhD on this particular subject. And therefore, what I want to tell you is that in in research, not only you need to challenge yourself and equip yourself with the necessary knowledge, but also you have to persevere. Now, my third sabbatical was at the Climate Control Division of the Ford Motor Company in Michigan. Now, there I was asked to work on again in new field, vibroacoustics of hoses and bellows. Again, about which I knew nothing. But again, I took up the challenge, and eventually I was able to, really do some very original work and publish a couple of papers in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America. Now, these studies revealed that apart from their role in vibration isolation and the structured bone sound, hoses and bellows play a considerable role in the breakout noise as well as enhanced axial transmission loss. Now, during all this time, I was chairman of the National Committee for Noise Pollution Control, which advises the Central Pollution Control Board, which is the executive wing of the Ministry of Environment and Forests. In fact, this committee was set up in 1998, and I remained its chairman for 18 years. Okay, since its inception in 1988, based on this committee's recommendations, the Ministry of Environment and Forests issued gazette notifications for the control of noise from diesel generator sets, portable gensets, automobiles, firecrackers, public address systems, etc. And my sustained contribution to the noise pollution control was recognized by the government of Madhya Pradesh, the conferment of the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru National Award in Engineering and Technology for the year 2010. So you can see here that I must have been also particularly lucky, because everything that I did was recognized. Not everything happens like this. There's so many scientists in the country who would be as deserving as myself, but not everybody gets that. And I got it simply, in fact, without trying. I just kept working, and other things kept happening. It's really, people say often, how do you plan? How did you do this? I never planned for awards or distinctions, but those things happened automatically. Now, I superannuated in July 2010. That was about 11 years ago. Now, subsequent to my formal superannuation in July 2010, I was offered this honorary professorship at Institute of Science for 5 years. Now, this is a very interesting thing. When I won't get any money, I would get, contingent expenses to work. And not only that, being honorary professor meant that I could retain my office, my laboratories, my students, everything will continue as if I had not retired, except that I will not get any salary other than pension. But concurrently, during 2010 to 13, I had the honor to work as INAE distinguished professor, and this one, of course, gave extra money too. Now, during this time, I wrote 2 books. Noise and Vibration Control. It's a textbook for undergraduates and also for people working in industry. And then second thing, of course, that was my research, acoustics of ducts and mufflers, second edition. And incidentally, both these books were sponsored by Government of India. So I didn't have to spend any money on it. In fact, after that, whatever royalty I got, that of course I could keep. So that Government of India has been very kind. They enable you to write these books. At the same time, they don't ask any royalty out of it. And then I also, after these 3 years of INA Distinguished Professorship, I got INSA Senior Scientistship for 3 years, 13 to 16 and 17 to 19. And this again gave me some money too. Now, since 2019, I have been working as INSA Honorary Scientist. And of course, recently, as you know, I got this AICT Distinguished Chair Professorship, under which I'm giving this lecture to you today and sharing my life experiences. Now, post-retirement, as I said, I continue to work. So I've been working and guiding graduate students in the analysis and design of multiply connected mufflers. It is a very challenging field again. Okay, these mufflers are used extensively in automotive exhaust systems that call for wideband insertion loss, particularly at and around the firing frequency and low back pressure. And multiply connected mufflers satisfy both the requirements, but pose formidable challenge in modeling. And we have developed a novel integrated transfer matrix method for this type of mufflers, which is quite a breakthrough. Incidentally, this we developed in around 4 years after retirement. A girl, she was working with me for her MSc engineering, and she was able to develop this. In fact, I was telling you, I have been very lucky to get some very good students. Okay, but unfortunately, this girl did not continue her PhD. That's one of the problems in India still, where parents think that a girl, getting married at the right time is very important. Okay, so she was snatched away from University of Science, and now she has been, of course, working at BHEL Hyderabad. Okay, but I really feel that the loss was great because the kind of work she had done, she would have got nice PhD and a very good career. Even now she is working in research, but then naturally that's at a different level. Now the latest development has been the design of double-tuned extended tube chamber mufflers, which are characterized by wide band transmission loss as well as low back pressure. Now this is quite a breakthrough on which I have been working for the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm presenting, giving a keynote address next month, in the what is called SEAT, Symposium on International Automotive Technology in Pune, at the Automotive Research Association of India. And also to avoid the rather cumbersome computational fluid dynamics modeling, lumped flow resistance network model has been developed by us for evaluation of the mean flow back pressure, making use of the nonlinear electrical circuit theory. So this is another thing. So what I'm trying to say is, all this what I'm saying here has been done after my retirement. In fact, I must say, some of the best research from the practical point of view has been done only after my retirement. I'd also like to share with you some international honors that I got. And based on my sustained work in muffler acoustics, I was invited to deliver a plenary address at the 18th International Congress on Sonar Vibration at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And during the inauguration ceremony, I was bestowed with honorary fellowship of the International Institute of Acoustics and Vibration. Besides, I have been distinguished international member of the Institute of Noise Control Engineering of USA since 1988, member of the European Academy of Sciences, and member of the editorial board of the International Journal of Acoustics and Vibration until last year. And I want to share with you a little about consultancy. It's more challenging Yet it is more satisfying to an engineering scientist at the end of the day. I have carried out more than 125 consultancy projects during the last 5 decades, apart from helping DRDO and the Defense Forces. In fact, I was a member of the Technology Advisory Board of Indian Army, and I was also a member of the Technology Advisory Board for the Council of Scientific Industrial Research. When working in the institutional consultancy mode, I have been able to earn for or return, to the institute substantial part of my salary or pension, apart from increasing my take-home salary or pension. Moreover, my students get the opportunity to work on real-life problems. Consequently, they are in high demand from the industry. In fact, often, when the campus interviews took place, my students were one of the first to be picked up by industry. But this noise control field is one in which there are very few people in the country, whereas every industry has noise problem. And then I just want to tell you a little about this textbook that I wrote on noise and vibration control. It's a textbook for undergraduates in mechanical engineering and published by World Scientific Publishers, Singapore, in collaboration with ISC Press in June 2013. And it is based on my 4 decades experience in teaching and industrial consultancy. It is specially suited for self-reading by engineers working in industrial noise control. In fact, several faculty development courses have been arranged for training teachers of engineering colleges who will then be encouraged to introduce this course in their undergraduate curriculum. Incidentally, I gave this one first course in Bangalore. We have 55 teachers and engineers attended this course. And then second was in IIT Bhubaneswar East. Then third at IIT Guwahati. And then also at IIT Hyderabad. And in fact, that was given by my former student who is now associate professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering at University of IIT Hyderabad. And also, I also gave this course and also this lecture at the College of Engineering Pune. I don't know whether you know the connection that I'm trying to tell you. The present chairman of All India Council for Technical Education, he was my PhD student in 80s. Okay, and after working with me and getting degree, he wanted to work, for the Northeast, which was comparatively backward, and he got assistant professorship at NERIST. NERIST means Northeast Regional Institute of Science and Technology. And in fact, he set up the Department of Mechanical Engineering there. Later, he was one of the founders of IIT Guwahati. Starting with associate professorship, he rose to become later deputy director of IIT Guwahati. And then he was picked up to revive College of Engineering in Pune, which is otherwise a 150-year-old college, which was like a sleeping institute. And he came there, and now in 9 years there, he really brought it to a level where it is supposed to be an ideal institution in Maharashtra. And it is from there that he was picked up to be chairman of All India Council for Technical Education. So I am really very proud of such students. As I said, I've been lucky to have students like that. Now I want to tell you here that I have been able to attract some very good students for PhD, MSc, and their creativity has often surprised me. In fact, many times a student would come to me with something which I really would not understand. In fact, and there are 2 or 3 students, including this Dr. Salsabudde himself, who did something which I really actually could not understand first. So what I'm trying to say is that main thing that is I want to share with you that this is what is called principle of mastermind. When a number of people work on the same problem or think about the same problem together, in complete harmony, often they come out with something which none of them individually would have thought of. And that's what is called the principle of mastermind. And finally, now I would like to close this lecture with some suggestions for the budding researchers. Rising out of all these personal experiences, there are a few suggestions that I would like to make to the younger members of the scientific and academic fraternity. First is, be resourceful. It's very important, I repeat, be resourceful. The best of science was not created by scientists with great resources. In fact, all over the world, you can see that people had hardly any resources, but that is what brought out the best in them. In fact, I often turned the lack of resources into a challenge, and the result was amazing. That's what I told you in the last few slides. If you enjoy your work, you will never feel tired. I proved this to myself again and again in my life. In fact, let me tell you something interesting. When I became chairman of the Division of Mechanical Sciences at IISc, I was looking after 10 departments at the same time. By the end of the day, I used to feel some kind of heavy-headedness kind of thing, a small headache. And I had never had that kind of headache earlier. And so I talked to my farmer guide as a nurseman. And he said, knowing you are getting this headache because you are missing your research. First I thought he was joking, but then he meant it. And then when I thought about it, I really realized that whenever I'm doing research, how many hours I'm working, how much, I never get any headache, never get tired. And here, because I was doing most of the time administration, and I was only dealing with human beings rather than real research. So what I did was, I could not reduce that, but I changed my routine, and I would go to the department in the morning at by 8 o'clock, and then 8 to 10 or 11, I'd be doing my research or guiding students. And then again, the evening after coming back at 4, 5 o'clock, again, go back to the department many times and do research. And when I started doing that, you would think that I would be getting more headache because now I was overworking. It's just opposite. I had no headache at all. So that satisfaction that is required, that was there. And I was very, very happy. And when you are happy, you cannot have headache at the same time. So what I'm trying to say is that try to enjoy your work. And that's what most important. Again, I say enjoy the process of research. Do not make it a job. Work does not kill. Stress does. So don't be stressful. Enjoy the process of research and you'll see the results. Another thing I want to tell you is very on a serious note, creativity increases as we think deeper and deeper. And this depth can be achieved by thinking about a problem undisturbed for long hours at a stretch, without any coffee breaks or phone calls or chats. Now, incidentally, this is what I did, after my ME, when I was doing research. I was also a lecturer, but all the time I was in the library and doing this. And in the process, I was able to, that's how I was able to do, develop that algorithm and further, get my PhD, etc. So what I'm trying to say is, and in fact, this is only a hint I'm giving you today. This is what is the subject matter of my second lecture. Second lecture will be on towards creative thinking. I'm sure Dr. Deepa Jose will make arrangement for it for my next lecture. But this is, I'll really go deeper into this about creative thinking and tell you that it's all in your hand and you can make you and your colleagues creative by this process and enjoy the whole process of research. Another thing I want to tell you is in the long run, clarity about basic principles, laws, and concepts is more important than cramming for the examination. Concepts remain with you for a long time, and during spells of deep, extended thinking, they result in creativity. Again, as I said, I'll talk at length in my second lecture, and I'll close it today. And thank you very much for your patient hearing.
So thank you very much, sir. It was a very good speech, and thank you so much for sharing your life experience and how you work towards building the self-confidence by converting the negatives into positives. And also, I hope the student fraternity has gained a lot of inputs from you, and how to concentrate on basics and how to give more importance to learning the concepts and basics rather than just scoring marks for the exams. Thank you once again, sir, on behalf of the management of KCG College of Technology and on behalf of the students who participated today, a very heartfelt thanks to you, sir. Now over to you, students. If you want to interact and ask doubts, any one of you want to ask doubts and clarify, you can go ahead, unmute yourself and start.
Sir,
Yes.
so how to stop overdoting on our confidence, sir? On our
Can you repeat the question once again?
how to stop overdoting on our confidence level?
Yeah. Let me just tell you here. You need to review your life and try to put down on paper all the situations in which you have succeeded, all your success stories, put them on paper. Whatever small things right from childhood, whatever you did and you succeeded, put that down. So what happens is when you do all this, you will find that anytime you feel defeated, all you need to do is read that again. And this is very important because what happens is, we tend to be very anxious about the results and all that. And we saw, how can I do it? How can I do that? How will I do it? Never do this kind of negative thinking. Whenever you tend to do that negative thinking or self-doubting, you please go back to those pages. Read that when you have succeeded. And you will find that you will get out of the depression and you're ready to try again. Another thing is very important. I'll give you the example of somebody climbing, doing mountain climbing. He may be, aiming at Mount Everest. But then as he's going along, he'll have so many, instances where he'll feel very tired, very defeated. I look at the mountain above and says, my God, how can I climb that mountain? At that stage, all he has to do is he should look down. Instead of up, look down, and then look at all those mountains that he has already climbed, come to that point. You understand what I'm saying? He has to look down and then appreciate and congratulate himself that he could climb all this and then reach that particular stage. This is the way to get out of depression and get back your confidence. And once you get that confidence, start climbing again. Okay? And then let me also tell you, often we have this problem at industrial science quite a bit. Because what happens in the research, the real good results come only once in a while. The question is, how do you keep yourself going during the rest of the time? During the rest of the time, you have to learn to look down. That is all that things you have already achieved. In fact, I tell my students here at IASC, I said, whenever you feel depressed, tell yourself that you are at the Institute of Science. That means you have already climbed so much to reach this stage. You are already in the top 1 percentile of students. So congratulate yourself being better than 99% of the students in the country. And then you will find that you don't feel indifident anymore. So Lokesh, I hope I have answered that your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So there is a question in the chat box, sir. Can I read it out?
Yes, please.
This is by a student, Karthik. He's asking you, sir, have you ever failed any challenge that you have taken?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, Nathan, I have given you only the, what should I say, success stories. Okay, but I have, of course. But then whenever, I failed, this is how I put myself back, that I had always, in fact, I'll tell you something. There is a book, The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. I don't know if anybody knows about it. When I was, in the 8th standard, when the results were out and I got this open scholarship, etc., etc. In a ceremony, the principal of the school, he presented me some books, and one book was this one, that is The Law of Success. And in that law of success, there are several things, and this is how the best way is that you write down all your, what you have succeeded in, so that whenever you get into that mood, you have to read that. So whenever I would have failed in something, I would refuse to accept the failure. Now, this is very important. Many people, they do much more harm to themselves by accepting a failure. Not accept it. All it means is that if I was trying a particular approach for something, that did not work. So that itself was a result, as it happens often in research, But let us say a student comes to me, and then I tell him to try, let us say, approaches A, B, and C. Okay. No, the approach A fails. When it fails, when I tell him that it's not that you have failed, I tell my student, it's not that you have failed. It only means approach. That's all. Okay, and that's the result. So that now onwards, I will also never tell any other student to apply that approach A. It does not work. So what I'm trying to say is, from any failure, you have learned something positive and simply go forward. Okay. So this is what I'll say, that not everything will succeed, but I can also tell you that at least 70 to 75% of the times I have succeeded, and all because of that one advice that I got from that at the earlier time in primary school, when I was told that it all depends on how much you challenge yourself. And when I challenge myself, whenever I have succeeded, I note it down. So all those notes are always with me to tell me that I am capable of doing this, capable of doing this. So therefore, I just don't let myself be discouraged. And another thing is very important, I would like to share with you. See, whenever you have a situation, there are two ways of looking at this. One is that if nobody could solve this problem, how can I solve it? That's what 99% of people do. If nobody else could solve it, how can I solve? Now there is another way of asking it. If anybody will be able to solve this problem, why cannot it be me? So what I'm trying to say is that even that same thing happened, after my master's degree, when I started working PhD instead of going abroad. And then, I told myself that, see, people, they are generally proud of saying, I worked at MIT. I worked under such and such professor. But why should it be the other way around? That I raise myself to a level that my teacher says that this Manohar Munjal was my student. I'll make him proud of me. I make institute proud of me, rather than only using the institute name to go up. So what I'm trying to say is, it's all a question of your perception And you should have the right perception, and then only you can only go forward. Have I answered the question?
Thank you, sir. I hope Karthik, anyone else, any other answer, any other questions to ask?
Good morning, sir. I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. So my question is like, how will we keep our focus on developing our intentions of building and developing our confidence on daily basis?
Yeah, that is very, very important. I'm glad you asked that question. Again, you know, I mean, I lay my stress on writing. And let me first go back to the problem. And I was telling you that, you know, I was working for several hours thinking about problem. Naturally, like anybody else, my mind also would go, you know, everywhere else. Okay. But then to see that does not happen, I had made a habit. Whenever I'm not finding answer, I ask myself, okay, what was the question? It's very important. We must ask, learn to go back to the question. So when I'm thinking about a question, I write it down on a paper. And when I'm thinking, whatever occurs to me, I just jot it down. After, let us say, 2 hours, I go back and 70 to 80% will be almost silly what I've written. But there'll be 1 or 2 or 3 things which will say, yes, I think that makes some sense. Why don't I take it forward? And that's what I do. So I cross out the other one and continue with that. Again, whatever occurs to me, I keep writing. All that time, by writing down and reading what I have written, automatically I preclude all extraneous thoughts. Because, you know, mind has to think. And I'm giving mind material to think on rather than going randomly anywhere else. And same thing happens in the general questions in life, you know, that if you put down your aims, and mind you, another thing I want to tell you here, that your aims must be realistic and they should be well defined. Now let me explain to you. If somebody says my aim is to get Shanti Swarup Bhattacharya Prize, no, that is nonsense. Because there is no road going to that prize. So you have to ask yourself, put questions, achievables that are really achievable. Okay. And then when you are doing that, awards and distinctions, recognitions, they will come. But you cannot plan for it. Most of the people only start planning for that. And then because that whole thing is such that there's no such particular path going to that, they never reach that. So please don't do that. You understand? So you can only say to yourself that, no, I have to understand this. I must be able to do this. This I can do better than this. This is not the right derivation. You know, I can do better than that. So what I'm saying, have challenges of a small kind, day to day, and not straight away something of somebody, for example, is starting to climb mountain. Straight away cannot go. I have to go to Mount Everest. That's nonsense, you know. So he has to say, okay, this is the hill. This is the path, general path. I must go reach the end, top of the hill at the end of the day. Now that is achievable. Okay. So always break that overall journey into small journey and put them down on paper. Keep looking at them, and day to day, go on teaching them. Okay. And all the time remain with your aims. And then you will find that one day you will be able to fulfill those aims. Okay. Have I answered the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Nitya, you have any more questions?
Yes, ma'am. I have the one question.
Okay, please do ask.
Yes, ma'am. So, sir, my question is like, we tend to compare ourselves with other people. So, is that a reason for lack of self-confidence, sir?
Yes, never do that. Raise yourself to a level that others compare them with you. You don't do that. Please, in fact, when you compare, automatically you are accepting a lower position for yourself. Don't do that. You know, everybody is different. Everybody is unique. And so are you. You are unique. You may not have, let's say, 10 talents that I have, but you will have an 11th one which I don't have. Look for that 11th one. Look for your, talents, and again put it down on paper. All the time I'm telling you, putting down on paper, because this is very important, because we tend to forget good things or right things. So if you have written down, those will always remain with you. So whenever you have reached those kind of situations, all you have to do is close everything else, open up that pad and start looking at it. Okay, so this is how you retain your self-confidence.
Thank you, students. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Before I starting anything or doing anything, I just thinking that what if I failed in this? So how to stop over that? Sir?
Never do that. In fact, you are killing your thing right in the beginning. This what if is the worst thing that you can do. Never do that. What if this happens? What if this? Let it happen. When it has happened, let it happen. But don't ask this question, such a negative question to yourself. Please don't do that. Don't do that. This is how many people almost become their own enemies. In fact, anyway, next time at the second lecture, I'll be going deeper into many of these things about creativity. So, keep that, keep other questions for that day.
So there's a technical question in the chat box. Can I ask that to you, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would like to do spacecraft designing. So whether I should pursue BE in mechanical or aerospace? The question posed by the student.
For aircraft engineering, is it?
For spacecraft designing.
Spacecraft, okay, fine. Yeah, please listen. Remember one thing, spacecraft designing or space science is a very, very multidisciplinary science. You will find, if you look at ISRO, for example, today, more than 50% are mechanical engineers. Almost 30-35% are basically in the controls, and guidance. That is all. Basically, they are electrical communication engineers or electrical engineers. Also, in mechatronics and so on. Okay, and then there are people also from a chemical engineering side, because they work on basically the fuels for rockets, etc. Okay, and because everything is finally fluid mechanics also, so you need to learn that. So there is nothing like, space science is not by itself a single discipline. To give you one good example, Dr. Suresh, who was earlier director of VSSC Trivandrum, he has written a book on space science. That's the first book of its kind in the world, where he has really covered all what he did or he learned over the years. But basically, he's like me, a mechanical engineer from IIT Madras. So what I'm trying to say is that, so there's nothing like, what you should be doing to do that. But you have to only start your career only in small basic thing like either mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, electrical communication engineering, etc. But later on, you join Trivandrum, Indian Institute of Space Technology. I hope you have learned about this institute. So they give you the MTech degree in that, and then they train you in all the aspects of space science. So, and they take, intake is from mechanical, electrical, electronics, and electrical communications.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, yes. Lokesh, please.
How do I bounce back from rejection and failures?
I wish I were a counselor. But the main thing is that, I mean, you try to change the way you think. Do not, nurture any negative or defeatist kind of thinking. Don't do that. That's why I said, about anything particular, instead of saying, if nobody has been able to solve this problem, how can I solve? Instead of that, say, if anybody will be able to solve this problem, why could it be not me? What I'm trying to say is you expect from yourself much more. And you will find that you will not get all that, but you will definitely get something out of that. And this is what I have been doing. You look at me, for example, now. I told you that, we started completely from penniless position, from a refugee camp, no guidance at all. And my father or mother, they were also illiterate. Now, if I had done that thinking, oh my God, what future I have, I should only pick up something from the market and start doing that. But, no, I don't do that. I mean, just I went to the school, and that I was telling you about that lecture on that development of the brain. Now, after all, that sentence was heard by hundreds of students, but I must have been one of the very few who really got it, because I was all the time I was looking for answer to how do I guide myself in life. And here was something, he told me that it's all in your hand. And I used it and have been so successful in my life, just picking up from that one advice I got from that psychologist. So what I'm trying to say is, all the time you have to do only positive thinking. The negative thoughts should not be nurtured or nursed at all, anytime. I'm telling you, this works. This really works. And not ever ask this question or start with this, what if this happens? Please don't do that. Then you are your worst enemy. This question is not to be asked. Please.
So thank you, sir. Very inspiring, sir, and hope and wish that the students are equally inspired by you. Over to student Doreen to wind up the session. Any other questions? I hope sir has answered more than 6 questions. And I thank the students. Yes, sir.
They can keep the questions for the next lecture.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thank the students for being interactive and asking so many doubts, and for attending for more than 1.5 hours. Very thankful to the students and for showing the interest to participate in the session also. Over to Doreen, student of Electronics and Communication Engineering, to wind up the session.
I'm sure, sir, that your words from your experience are going to help us mold our lives more constructively. Hope we will put all into practice the lessons from this session for a future filled with hope and promise. Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights. Perception creates reality. You can become the person you want to be. You have heard it said that if you can believe it, you can achieve it. So start believing in yourself. Act on that belief, and you'll start building self-confidence in your life on your way to success. What an eventful session it has been. I would like to invite Dr. Deepa Jose to deliver the vote of thanks.
So, as I told already, on behalf of the management and the students, I extend my heartfelt thanks and invite you to the next session. Hopefully, we'll plan it during the month of September or October, according to your convenience. Thank you once again.
All the best.
Students, you can leave the session. Thank you for joining.